Hello and welcome to On the Record with me, Shereen Bhan. We're here at the Kotak Mahindra Bank headquarters in Mumbai, and it is my pleasure to welcome on the program Ashok Vaswani, a career banker with over 3 decades of experience, but never in India. From Citigroup to Barclays to an AI fintech company before he actually headed back home to Kotak Mahindra Bank as MD and CEO. Mr. Vaswani, thanks very much for joining us here on CNBC-TV18. An absolute pleasure. And as I pointed out, in many ways, a homecoming for you. Sydenham College is where you sort of found your feet before you headed out of India. But what is it like to be back here running a bank?
Shereen, welcome to our headquarters. Very excited. It's really nice to be back home, and it's even more fun being at Kotak. It's such an incredible platform, such a great brand, and there's so much more we can do, to really become a powerful force in the country.
But what has been the easiest part of making this transition? What has been the hardest part of making this transition? I'd also ask you this in the context of the fact that you're walking into some very large shoes that have been around at Kotak Mahindra Bank for over 2 decades, running and steering the ship here. And you also saw the departure of other senior bankers from Kotak, Shereen Bhan, Deepak Gupta, and of course Mr. Manian. What has that transition meant, and has stability returned?
So, I think the biggest challenge really has been stepping into the shoes of Mr. Kotak. He's built this from zero, literally from zero, and what he has done is incredible, absolutely amazing. So I would say, getting your arms around the place, getting used to it, takes a bit of time, but I feel very, very good as I sit here. Coming home has obviously been the easiest part. It's nice to get, regular good Indian food and stuff like that every single day. As far as the team is concerned, Shereen, some of these were always planned. The fact that Deepak was going to be around till 31st was planned. Jaimin's retirement was planned. Manian was a different kind of story. But, Kotak has a very deep bench, a very good bench, a tenured management team, and we're kind of moving along. I don't think we skipped a beat.
Well, speaking of moving along, let me ask you, you've spent 9 months here now at the bank, and you've articulated very clearly the 4 priority areas. You call them the 4 C's. How much progress have you made on each of those, and where do things currently stand, especially as far as the company is concerned?
Yeah. So, Shereen, the way we kind of talk about it is what is winning. And when you say what is winning, the first thing you've got to say is winning with whom. And I've said they've got 4 stakeholders for whom or against which we are winning. The first one, of course, being the customer. I think there's nothing more important than the customer. If you get it right by the customer, everything else falls into place. If you get it wrong by the customer, everything else goes away. My focus, my time, my energy is focused on getting it right by the customer. Frankly, we get it right by the customer, the company will fall into place. And if you're going to give the tools and everything to your colleagues, they will find it a much nicer place to work, and will do it right by the customer. And finally, the community, which is really, in a broad sense, the regulator and, of course, the brand. So this is how we measure winning. And this is not like a sprint. It's not a 100-meter race. This is about the long term, right? How we're going to continuously demonstrate quarter after quarter, year after year, how we are winning against these 4 constituencies.
Let me address that constituency that you just spoke of, which is, of course, one of the most crucial constituencies, which is the regulator. And I think that is the big overhang today as far as the Kotak Mahindra Bank story is concerned, with the RBI imposing restrictions on account of deficiencies in the digital and IT infrastructure, not allowing you to onboard mobile as well as digital customers, as well as putting restrictions on your credit card business. Now, if you can share with us details on what you've been specifically able to do to demonstrate to the Reserve Bank that you are adequately or appropriately addressing those deficiencies, and where do you believe that you stand? I mean, there is, of course, an external audit that's also been sought, but where do you believe you stand in the remedial measures?
So, Shereen, first things to start, where we started with is, look, India has the best digital public infrastructure compared to any other place in the world. I've worked in every other place in the world. I've never seen anything like this, right? Now, obviously, that has led to the demand for digital services having gone up dramatically. And it's about the bank systems having to keep up pace with that. So we've been spending the last couple of months really focused on how we grow and make our systems foolproof. And like in every crisis, there's an opportunity. So we've taken this as an opportunity to really say how we'll really leapfrog and make our systems really resilient and relevant for the days to come. So I think we've made very, very good progress. Obviously, we've been in continuous touch with the RBI, sometimes even every week, updating them, getting their guidance, making sure we're on the right path. And I think we've made tremendous amounts of progress, and we'll continue to do it. You know, obviously the RBI is exceedingly important, but the customer, I've got to get it right by the customer.
Yeah.
I got to stay resilient for the customer. I need the best customer experience for the customer. And, you know, yeah, RBI has told me you got to do it.
So, and I understand that some of this is confidential, some of this is of course up to the regulator to speak about as well. But from your perspective, and you said that you're engaging with the RBI sometimes even on a weekly basis, you know, again, for the benefit of our viewers who are watching, what are the steps? If you can give us some specifics, the steps that you have taken, what has that meant in terms of incremental investments, for instance, as well? What has that meant in terms of big changes on the IT infrastructure side to address some of the deficiencies that have been pointed out? And whether there's been an acknowledgement by the Reserve Bank in any form or fashion, formally or informally, on any of those measures?
So, Shreya, actually the process started about 2 years ago when we started ramping up our investments in technology. And we spend roughly 10% of our entire OPEX on technology. So that adds up to a very significant sum. And we've been kind of growing that to about 11%. Since the order, we've doubled up on resources. We've used, you know, consultants and stuff like that. And we also, I think, went on record to say that the cost of the order would be something to the extent of about 450 crores on an annualized basis. And pretty much that number seems to be correct even now. But like I said, we've made tremendous amounts of progress. If you look at downtimes, they're down significantly. Customer experience has improved quite significantly. And when we come out of the gate, I think we'll come out of the gate exceedingly strong, both in terms of new products, but new customer experiences, much higher level of resilience, and really deliver great products and services for our customers.
You know, you talked about coming out of the gate and feeling that when you do, you will be much stronger. But is there any indication on how long it will take for you to be able to get yourself to come out of the gate, so to speak?
So that's not entirely within my control, obviously. But every single day, we're getting a little better, a little better, a little better. So the more time I have, the better the product and service when I do come out of the gate. And, you know, the RBI actually...
But surely you wouldn't want more time, you'd want less time,
absolutely, right? Absolutely. But all I'm trying to say is that we're utilizing the time well. And when we get there, we'll be out very, very strong.
Okay. You know, I also want to understand from you what the implications or the impact is likely to be as far as customer addition is concerned.
We get a lot of our customers digitally, right? Now, what have we done since the RBI has asked us not to onboard digitally? We've changed our processes and changed it from digital only to assisted kind of journeys, where a human being assists the customer to do the journey and complete the journey. So obviously we can't do as much as we were doing digitally, but we are running at roughly 30-35% of what we were doing pre the order.
Does this in any way also change your plans as far as physical expansion is concerned?
The fact of the technology order does not change our strategy. But generally speaking, what we've said is we are at about 1,948 branches as we speak. In the next 3 to 4 years, we would like to get to about 3,250 to 3,500 branches. And that is determined by where we want our branches focused, which geographies we want them focused, and how we're going to go it out. So we'll step up the pace of branch expansion, but that's not directly linked to the technology order. That is just a business strategy issue.
Well, you talked about branch expansion. Let me ask you about expansion from a different lens, and that is the M&A route. And, Kotak Mahindra Bank has not shied away from big-ticket M&A. We do know that you are in the race for IDBI Bank. You did submit your expression of interest. Whether that finally converts into a formal bid or not, yes, no, maybe?
So, look, we've never shied away from M&A. We are not shying away from M&A even today. We look at every single opportunity that comes along, and as and when the opportunity comes along and presents ourselves, we will evaluate it.
But does it still make strategic sense, IDBI Bank specifically?
I don't think it's hot and cooking right now. So I think when the time comes and there's talk about doing something, we will definitely look at it and evaluate.
The transaction is still in. I mean, it's quite literally. From all indications from the government, it's kind of moving forward at this point in time. So does Kotak intend to take it forward or not?
When the government tells us and the RBI tells us, we'll definitely have a look at it.
Okay, let me move now to talk about the banking environment in specific and the big concern for banks on the deposit side. And I want to understand from you how you're looking at this.
It's not unusual for deposits to drop off in the first quarter because you normally end March on a pretty high. At least the way I look at it, there's a lot of talk in India about, everybody's going to the capital markets and therefore deposits are going to drain out. Frankly, I've worked in the US, I've worked in the UK, and deposits have pretty much stayed flat as a percentage of GDP and continued to grow all over the years, right? And there, obviously the participation in the capital markets is much, much, much higher than in India. So this notion that suddenly, there's going to be a complete dearth of deposits and everybody's going to invest in the capital markets,
overdone?
I think it's overdone, right? And I think that, look, as long as there's an economy, as long as there's expenditure, as long as there's businesses, deposits will continue to kind of grow. Is the customer becoming more sophisticated and savvy? Absolutely. And that's bound to happen, right? But I don't see this situation as suddenly deposits are going to suddenly disappear or anything like that.
Well, maybe not disappear, but dry up, or at least certainly be harder to get by. What is that going to mean in terms of, cost pressures, margins, as well as, maybe reframing your strategy on how you try and get them?
Shereen, my market share is 1.5 to 2%. I've got a long way.
But what is the aspiration, even as far as market share is concerned?
No, very, very clear. Look, like I said right up front, Kotak is a great brand. Kotak is a great platform. There's no reason why Kotak shouldn't be within the top 3 private sector banks. And I'm talking not only of the bank, I'm talking about our subs. Where our subs are within the top 5, why we can't be within the top 3, or just full stop, be within the top 5, right? Growth and transforming for scale is exactly what this mandate is about.
What's the timeline?
So, frankly, it's, you usually do these plans 5 years, you take 2024, you add 5, 2029, call it 2030. So round numbers, 2030 is where we are saying we should grow market share quite significantly.
And is organic growth largely going to drive it, or do you believe that it's going to be a mix of both organic as well as inorganic growth?
It's going to be both.
Even as far as unsecured lending is concerned, the regulator has sort of been periodically and quite frequently addressing that as a potential cause for concern and something that the banking sector needs to be watchful of. Again, any signs there of trouble for you specifically?
So, Shereen, there are clearly areas and there are clearly segments of customers where we are seeing over leverage. I think during COVID, I think the banks became very careful and they kind of pulled back. Then suddenly realized that during COVID, things are turning out to be definitely not as bad, actually turning out to be pretty well. Of course, supported by the government and stuff like that. And I think that there was a little bit of an overextension there. And so there are segments of customers where we are seeing over leverage. It'll correct itself out over the next couple of quarters.
Okay, but what does that mean over the next couple of quarters in terms of, NPAs, in terms of the impact as far as the bank is concerned?
I think as far as credit cards is, I think for the industry overall, for the industry overall, you will see some elevated losses. I think that's already starting to show up. Some of the numbers are, clearly there. I think you'll see that for a quarter or two, and then it should kind of even out. But you will see some elevation in credit losses.
Any other, any other visible signs or incipient signs of pain that you see emerging?
Not really. Like I said, the economy is doing pretty well. Capital market businesses are doing really well.
What does that mean then from a subsidiary perspective and the growth plans and the growth aspiration that you have as far as subsidiaries are concerned?
See, that's why I feel so good about Kotak. And that's why I feel so strongly about Kotak, because we are literally got 4 or 5 major engines, right? We obviously have the banking engine, we have the insurance engine, we've got the capital markets business, we've got the investment bank. So we are firing on multiple engines. Even, God forbid, at a point in time, 1 or 2 engines are not firing, we still got another 3 engines which are firing very strongly. So, if you look back at, let's say, our Q1 results, you could see capital markets was doing really, really well, right? Obviously, the technology embargo put a dampener on our consumer bank, but our corporate bank was doing really, really well. So at every point in time, we are kind of continuing to soar and continuing to climb. As we strengthen, the future, getting 4 or 5 engines firing gets me very excited.
I would imagine. So as far as these 4 or 5 engines are concerned, where do you believe you are? I mean, are you in the first gear, second gear, third gear? Where do you believe that you find yourself across these spaces?
No, actually, if you look at it, capital markets is doing really well. The corporate bank is doing really well. Our investment bank and alternative investments is doing really, really well. The technology embargo has put some kind of pressure on the consumer bank, but otherwise, it's full steam ahead.
You said growth and transformation is the mandate. So really, as far as the consumer bank side is concerned, as and when the restrictions do lift themselves, how different do you believe your offering is likely to be? Because in a way, you said you also want more time to be able to figure out what else you could do with the customer or bring forward for the customer. How different is the approach likely to be?
For example, we are soon going to launch our new app. It is really cutting edge. I've seen stuff in the US, I've seen stuff in the UK. This is really good.
What makes it cutting edge?
Try it. When it launches, please try it.
No, but tell me, what makes it cutting edge?
Just the user experience, the speed at which it renders. We benchmark ourselves to the best tech companies in the world, and it kind of catches up to that kind of speed. The kind of user experience, the intuitiveness of it, is really, really quite amazing. So we're going to go, we've already launched it in beta, very good results, very promising kind of feedback. So when we go big, that'll be like one big thing.
Well, we're going to take a break on that note and return with what else is cooking at Kotak Mahindra Bank. We're in conversation with Ashok Vaswani. We're going to take a break and be right back with you with a lot more.